Hello, YouTube. This is R. Payne here, marriage, politics, and sports. Hey, listen, this is my 26th episode of divestment from the Democrat Party. And listen, I've been at this for over a year, and I'm happy to see these results, even though they don't seem like much. But 21% of Black men have divested and got off the plantation, whereas only 7% of Black women. And we're going to get into the numbers. But one of the things that I'm going to talk about with this video is those numbers. And before we get into that, because I got a little slide presentation going through each one of the numbers, like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell. Just a couple of things I do on Wednesdays. I have a sports show, so that's live. So I don't go live as much. I do these videos, but I can go live sooner or later. I'm gonna probably just be ranting a little bit. But I'm glad the election's over. There's some big unknowns with Trump coming in there. There's some known knowns and some unknowns because I think this time he's a little bit more savvy about being president. I think his picks that he wants to put out in place around him are much, much better than they were last time. Uh, he's got some of the changes he's already started to talk about is getting at the heart of the working class people that the Democrats have forgotten about, particularly Black people and Black women are so emboldened, so traumatized by this election. It's really hurting them because they voted for Harris and Trump. I mean, Harris at 91% plus because they see what's in the Democrats, keep trying to keep them on a string with their false promises and things of that nature. But for Black men and men in general, we're starting to wake up and say, well, there's nothing in this party for us. But to kind of put some salve on the whole thing, I did some numbers to show that even if 100% of all Black men and women voted for the Democrats this year, they would still lost the election, and they would have lost most of the swing states. So we're going to go through some of those numbers, and I'm going to go through a couple of slides. You can go double check the numbers yourself, uh, and that kind of stuff. But this is something I just felt like doing, just to kind of say, listen, that so-called uh, blacks being the savior of the Democrat Party, that's pretty much over now. That is pretty much over now. So, and the Democrats know that. That's why they're importing all these illegal immigrants in so they can try to build up another voting bloc because they see the writing on the wall, even if Black women don't see it. Uh, and with Trump coming in office, they're going to stop a lot of programs that destroy families, that keep families apart, and all this wokeism and all of this kind of stuff that is anti-Christian, anti-human. Uh, so we're gonna see a lot of changes. There's gonna be a lot of upheaval in this next 4 years, but it's gonna be of the good kind. We could get back to all of us not being colors, but just being Americans. That's where we need to get to, just being Americans, and every little subgroup trying to impose on other subgroups and other groups. That shit has got to stop. You're either American, living by life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness without stepping on the toes of your fellow man, or you're not. So, without further ado, we're going to go through some numbers. Now, I went through some of these numbers before, and I made an assertion that even if all the Black people voted for Kamala Harris, Trump still would have won, and he still would have won by a serious margin. So stay tuned. Let me go ahead and show you what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna start from the beginning. You see the numbers here. Now, these numbers here of the total votes, that was a snapshot in time. Some votes are still trickling in, but it's not going to change anything. In fact, I think Trump's margin of victory in terms of the popular vote is getting wider, not smaller. But the electoral college is pretty set, 312 to 326. So let me go ahead and share this other chart that I have. All right. So we're going to go through it, and we're going to go through it step by step. Okay. All right, let me get to this one here. Well, this first chart is a chart that we all see before. This one you can find anywhere. So this is how it broke down by race and then sex by race, and you can see where it says black men and black women, where 77% of black men voted for Harris, 21% voted for Trump, and 91% of black women voted for Harris, that's 7%. But all of the non-whites put together is only 29% of the whole electorate, right? So all of these bars, men and women, all non-whites, it's only 29%. 71% of the folks are white. Some for Harris, some for Trump. So I didn't do this experiments with all of them, but I just said, well, what if all of the blacks voted for Harris? What if they were all voted for Harris? So let's get to the next chart. So we got to do the numbers, right? So we got to start by showing the numbers and what they mean, right? So if you total up all of the numbers, there's 146 million folks roughly voted. The number of whites, since it's 71%, is 103 million. 29% of non-whites is 42 million. If I look at 7% of the non-whites, right, are black women, so that's 10 million. And 5% of the non-whites are 7 million. So these 17 million is wrapped up in that 42, just to let you know. So what if 100% of black men and black women actually voted uh, for Kamala Harris? So we'll take this 42 and multiply it by uh, to 64% of the electorate, because I want to get a difference here, right? So that's, so when I go and look at 100% of the blacks, if it's the women, that's 7% times 10 million gives you how many black women voted for uh, Trump. Same thing here with 21% of black men. This is how many black men voted for Trump. So if you add these two numbers together and you add it to this number where it says non-whites for Harris, you take these differences, and now this 27 million comes to 29.3 million of votes for Harris. So that would change to 64% of. So if I go back to this chart, I'm going to go to my next chart here. So this 64% now is 69% if you add all the blacks, 100% of blacks. And then this 33% reduces to 28%. Okay. So even though 100% of the black folks voted for Harris in this scenario, it didn't change much. You got 5 percentage points more in for Harris, 5 percentage points less for Trump. But remember now, that's only 29% of the electorate. That doesn't impact this number. So then the next question is, how does that impact the 7 states that are swing states? Right? That's what you want to know, right? How does it impact those states? So let's go back and take a look at it. So I found out each of the swing states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. And sort of differences between, the margin of victory for Trump in each one of those states, depending on the votes. So you'll see these numbers for each state. This is the margin of victory. For Arizona, for example, he got 184,000 more votes. And going down the line, 115 for Georgia, 80 for Michigan, 46 for Nevada, 189 for North Carolina, 103, 130 for Pennsylvania, and 29 for Wisconsin. So then I did the numbers, right? So I asked two questions. The questions are, if 100% of the blacks voted for Harris, how many swing states would have went over to her? And then would she have won the election? So if we keep going through those numbers, I just took these two bars from the other chart and I added them together. So the total number of black votes that Harris would have got if we would have did 100% is 2.249 million. So I have to make some assumptions. So the assumptions are, all right, we know that, but the 2.29 million, most of those votes will be on the East Coast and the West Coast. It will be in places where blacks are most plentiful. It'll be in Texas. It'll be all up at the two coasts, Texas, and some other states, Florida, some other states. So instead of trying to nitpick, I just said, let's just say the black votes were distributed equally over the United States. I mean, places like Utah, places like the Dakotas, there ain't too many blacks there. But if you talk about California and New York, that's almost the majority of black people, right? In North Carolina or someplace like that, or outside of the swing states, Texas, a lot of black folks there. So that 2.249 mostly will be in those states. So let's kind of try to be fair. So let's get a ratio, seven swing states over 50 states, right? So I did my ratio. So the number, if you look at this distribution, right? I just said if we kind of look at an even distribution over the United States, then I'll say 7 divided by 50 would give me a percentage points of the 2.49. And let's just say we have 314 states, 300,000, 314,000 votes that have to be distributed across the 7 swing states. So now I'll just take that number, I'll divide that by 7, of course, and then we have 44,000 votes more for each swing state. Okay, so if it was 44,000 votes for each of the swing states, and you can go with the numbers yourself slower. So if I applied that 44,000 to Arizona, Trump would have only won by 139,000. So he still wins that state. Georgia, subtract the 44,000. He only won by 7,000, 70,000. He still wins that state. And so on and so forth. Michigan, he still wins the state. Nevada, he still wins the state, but by a very small margin. So even if you want to dispute that, we could, but let's just say he still won that state. North Carolina, he still wins the state. In Pennsylvania, he still wins the state. However, he loses Wisconsin. Harris picks up Wisconsin if you subtract that 44,000 votes. Wisconsin has 10 electoral college, 10 electors. So even if that was true, he would have 302 electors. Harris would have 236. So he still wins the popular vote. He still wins the electoral college. He would lose one swing state. So that's essentially what I did. So I put it to numbers to prove my theory that, and I'm close because you could use other metrics to try to figure out how much of the black votes will be distributed over those 7 states. But I think what I did is just about probably the closest that you'll get. So the truth of the matter is, he was still winning. He was still won the presidency without any black votes. He still would have won. So what does that mean for the Democrats? And what does that mean for black folks? And what does that mean for the leverage that we think we have over the Democratic Party when they're going to lose even if we gave them all our votes? Now, we'll find out that those people really don't like black people. They're just using us. And now, if that usefulness is going to the wayside, what does that mean? And so thank goodness that was enough black people spoke up and said they're going to vote for Trump, because now Trump knows, even if he would have won by himself, because I don't think they did this calculation, maybe they did in the back room. He at least knows that, he has some support in the black community, a lot of support that's growing. So now some of his measures will keep all of us in mind. He doesn't have to be punitive because we gave all our votes to the Democrats. But the truth of the matter is, one of the things that we as Black folks have to do is that we have to change the scenario. If this was a SAT question, they're going to say which one of these bars is not like the other, which one of these groups of people are outliers compared to the rest of the United States. And it's easy to point to black men and black women who just like infants, like mental bondage, give all our votes to one party, and that one party is so far off the rails that the rest of the United States rejected them in the House, rejected them in the Senate, rejected them in the executive branch. And nobody wants to live by the wokeism and the censorship and all of the things they want to do to children and all of these kind of things. We can't be a party. We can't be a subculture that that champions that shit anymore. We got to be on the right side of history here. So I hope that over the next 4 years, that those numbers that are off the plantation increase. Now, I can't speak for black women, but I think black men are starting to say, listen, whether our women want to stay on the plantation or not, we got to get off. And if we get off, I would imagine a certain amount of black women will get off too, because they already have. That 7% of sisters who are gotten off the plantation are starting to make themselves known, right? They're not just touting the same old misandrous lines of how men are this and how men are that. And, every time they lose something, it's because a man is a misogynist and shit like that. And they just projecting their misandry on men, So I think this is a good election. I think it's a watershed moment. It's an opportunity for black men to stand up and move away from the old tropes. Stop sucking on your mother's tit and stop sucking on your wife's tit. She's not supposed to be in charge of your family. You are as a man. And the sooner you realize that, the better. Every other ethnic man understands that. And actually, their women understand that. That's why the Hispanic women haven't abandoned their men. That's why white women haven't abandoned their men. And we need to do some self-reflection to see why it was so easy for black women to abandon us the way they did and the way they have and the way they continue to have. So but we don't need to swing any axes at them. We just need to keep moving forward. Because once you start leading, women by definition start to follow. And so I think that's all that needs to happen. We just need to get more and more men off that plantation and moving in the right direction. So we're more independently minded. So depending on, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican, depending on what your policies are, that's what should drive us. Your policies, not identity politics, not because we want to see a person with brown skin in a hot place. Those days were over. We got one already. The last time we should ever vote for anybody because of the color of their skin was Obama. And that even's a mixed bag. So I think we've learned a lesson. I think that the numbers are there. You can go back through this presentation, through the video. If you need to go slower and just look at the numbers for yourself. But I'm just saying, you know, I think it's significant to understand that even if we would have voted 100% as black people for Harris, Trump would still be president. And it's so much better that we had something to do with his victory than to be stuck on the plantation uh, with the losers, right? And we see how they're behaving all over the internet, all over the airways with ABC, NBC, MSNBC, CNN. They're all going crazy. All their ratings are down because they lied to their people, right? So, um, We're in exciting times because Trump is going to transform the government if best he can. He only going if he does half the shit that he thinks he's going to do, I think we'll be better off. And in 2028, I still don't see what kind of candidate that the Democrats could put up there if they're touting the same old story that people are going to not do another red wave in 2028. So the midterms will tell us a lot, right? So if the Republicans keep the House and keep the Senate at the midterm point, watch out. They're going to win the presidency again. Anyway, all pain. But before I go, make sure if you have questions, put them in the comments section. Send some comments my way. If you agree or disagree, send some comments. Let's chop it up. Our pain, marriage, politics, and sports. Over and out.